My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be The Mammoth Cheese Video 14, Questions. This is my novel, James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese, a novel by John Passfield, historical photo of the mammoth cheese in its traveling case. Here's the summary on the back cover. With the contribution of 800 cows, the tiny village of Ingersoll, Ontario, has not only produced the world's largest block of cheese, has also nurtured the epic poet who can rapturously sing its praises. Now, if only Queen Victoria can be persuaded to take a hearty bite and add her majestic voice to the poet's ecstatic hymns of praise, the mammoth cheese will become the edible jewel in the crown of the globe-girdling British Empire. So, high hopes for the mammoth cheese. In this video, I'm going to read some of the questions that occur to the main character, James McIntyre, as he thinks his way through the experience of presenting the world's largest cheese in various cities. So let's go to chapter 1, right at the beginning. Within the first few words of the first chapter, the first few words of the novel, but these are actually thoughts in the mind of the main character. So right away he's asking himself questions. Why do you want to write an epic? Are your lyric poems not enough? Your everyday poems about Ingersoll? Well, okay, that's at the beginning of a chapter of thought. About halfway through the chapter of thought, let me just get the page here. Page 5, okay. 3 more questions. This is the mind asking itself. Do you know what an epic is? Any idea how many books? Any idea how many words? And then at the end, or near the end of the same chapter of thought, 3 more questions. How long would an epic take to write? Do you have time for such an undertaking? Do you think you could do it in your spare time? Okay, then we move into chapter 2, and the questions shift to a different category. Chapter 1 had to do with writing and form. You know, if you're going to pour your personal experiences into a form, and you choose the epic form, do you understand the implications of that form, the requirements and so on? Chapter 2 is the material that he would put into the form, his personal life. Where exactly were you born in Scotland? In the country or in the town? Just how Scottish do you feel yourself to be? Well, he thinks of many things in chapter 2, as he does in every chapter, but halfway through that chapter of thought, 3 more personal questions. Ever think about your mother? Any thoughts about your dad? A sad day, was it, when you said goodbye to them? Well, he did. He left Scotland and moved to Canada. So he's questioning himself about how relevant that experience would be to the poem that he's going to write about the epic cheese, about the mammoth cheese, writing an epic poem about the mammoth cheese. What was life like for you in Scotland? Why did you decide to leave? Why Canada, of all the places on the globe? Well, a lot of us whose ancestors have come not only from Europe, but from any other place in the world than where we're living now, have asked ourselves, well, why this particular spot? How did they find out? And I've never known with my families why they ended up in St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada. Chapter 3 then switches back to the form again, the form into which this life experience will be poured. Think of the life experience as being boiled down into hot molten gold or lead or maple syrup or whatever, and then being poured into a form. Well, the form will be the type of writing, the genre of writing that this fellow chooses, and he's thinking of the epic form. Are you aware of the size and shape of an epic poem? How many books do you think there are in the Iliad? Do you think you'll be able to write that many books? Okay, then in a chapter of thought, about halfway through, 3 more questions. Are you aware of the many rules concerning epics? Are you willing to adhere to every one of those rules? Do you realize that readers expect an adherence to epic form? Well, when you watch a horror movie, you expect it to adhere to the rules of the horror genre. When you watch a romantic comedy, You expect that particular movie to adhere to the rules of romantic comedy. So there are expectations of movie viewers and of readers. Are you going to be in line with those as a writer? Have you considered that there are 24 books in an epic? That every book of an epic is a book in itself? And each of these books is filled with dramatic episodes. So they're going to go to 3 cities with the Mammoth cheese. He's going to get like 24 books out of that, with each book crammed with dramatic episodes. I hope after those 3 cities, all local, to be able to go to England and then maybe on to the continent. So that's possible. He might get 24 books of dramatic episodes. Let's go to chapter 4 then, page 25. How did you find yourself in Ingersoll? What made you come and settle here? Did you hear about it in Scotland or after you came? Again, a chapter of thought on the Mammoth cheese, but some questions partway through. You have an affinity with people? Love to stand outside your shop? Love to chat with people about the town's affairs? And lastly, at the end of the chapter, are you proud of what you've accomplished? A man of stature, would you say, in this town? Is there anywhere else that you would rather live? Well, I'll stop there. That's 4 chapters of questions, alternating the form into which he's going to pour his experiences and the experiences. Just what kind of person are you and what do you have to offer a reader? So I'll stop there. That's 4 chapters out of 16. I won't read the others. Here's a note about it, though. I've been engaged for over 20 years now in the designing of form for the poetic novel of our time, the early 21st century. I set my novels inside the mind of the main character. In this case of this novel, inside the mind of the poet James McIntyre. I ask myself, what are the categories by which we think? In what ways do we process the information that enters our eyes and our ears and through our other senses in a barrage of information as we move through the second, the minute, the hour, and the day? One of my conclusions is that we ask ourselves questions. One aspect or element of our minds is always asking questions of another aspect or element of the mind. Sometimes there are answers, oftentimes there are no answers, as if an aspect or element of the mind has been given a task, asked to answer a question or a series of questions which it will need time, perhaps a lot of time, to be able to explore. So not so much answer immediately, but to explore. And that is why one of the most important technical devices that I have devised for the poetic novel for our time is the question minor cycle of imagery. The 2 questions that I repeatedly ask myself as a writer when I write my journals of review of a novel that I've just completed in rough draft and I'm now polishing are, how did I get here, and where do I go from here? So those are the 2 writer's questions I'm asking when I'm writing a journal. Some of these journals are 50,000 words. Some of them, my earlier ones, were 100,000 words. Hard to believe. And I'm basically asking 2 questions. So how did I get here and where do I go from here? In effect, these 2 questions summarize all of the questions that we ask ourselves as we move through our lives. How did I get here? Where do I go from here? I gave my main character, James McIntyre, 144 questions, 9 per chapter times 16 chapters, to ask himself in this novel. The typical human being probably asks hundreds, if not thousands, of questions from moment to moment. A novel, for me, is an artistic rendering, admittedly simplified, of the way we humans think. And that is the topic of every serious work of literary art. Once again, this is my novel, James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese. It's available on Amazon with more information. You can have a look at my publisher's website, rocksmillspress.com, ROCKSMILLSPRESS.com. Do that again. ROCKSMILLSPRESS.com, rocksmillspress.com. More information there. And lastly, johnpassfield.ca, my website, JOHNPASSFIELD. Not only more information, but 2 free books. The Planning Notebook, in which I plan and write the novel. The journal in which I review the novel, asking myself those 2 questions. So lastly, thank you for watching this video.